he's got to fight against 43 lands.
Yeah, unfortunately, he found the cards for it sitting across the table from him.
Yeah.
Playing, apparently, for top 8.
Chris Andersen is one of the best Elves players in the world. So,
when I think Elves, I think Matt Nass, but Chris Andersen.
Chris Andersen's no
another
slouch.
name to associate with Elves.
Right. I mean, when you think of Elves, you should think Jacob Van Lunen. Come on, guys.
Yeah. When I think of slivers, I think of Jacob Van Lunen for some weird reason. All right, so Dryad Arbor for Chris. Wasteland for Bobby Kovacs, who takes out Chris's dual land. All right.
Chris now with a Pendelhaven in hand.
Bobby now
to beat pretty hard.
Bobby down to just 42 lands left after using that Wasteland.
And yes, he has 42 lands already in his deck now.
Between his deck and his hand. Yeah. So Pendelhaven is that Birchlore.
That is a Birchlore Ranger.
Yeah.
And a Creeping Tar Pit from Bobby Kovacs. He's going to pass the turn back to Chris.
That's a land I miss in Standard.
Yeah. And Chris can win right now?
He's got Priest of Titania.
Yeah, I mean, he just needs a Nettle Sentinel, and he can probably try to glimpse into it. Okay, Chris is going to wait a turn. I think that's fine.
Elvish Visionary.
Yeah. I mean, if he draws a Nettle Sentinel, he can still go off here right now. The Nettle Sentinel off the top. All right. Now, Chris doesn't know that his opponent's playing 43 lands. I mean, the Wasteland and the Creeping Tar Pit could be a bit of a tell, but...
Yeah, I mean,
he's
not a
really
lot of decks
sure,
play Creeping Tar Pit in Legacy, but it doesn't necessarily mean for sure that it's lands.
Yeah, yeah, but Chris could win this turn, so... It's so interesting that he, Well, I guess because he played the Visionary first, it makes it a little difficult. If he waits till next turn, he's like guaranteed, basically. Whereas if he tries for it this turn, there's like definitely a chance he could fizzle. So let's hope that, for Chris's sake, that his opponent does not have the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale.
Yeah, and that would put the brakes on real quick.
Yes, it certainly would.
And for no mana.
But important to note, Chris has a crop rotation in hand, so even if his opponent does have the Tabernacle, Chris could probably break serve by using a crop rotation to find Gaia's Cradle.
But Bobby plays Rishadan Port. And off the top we have Llanowar Elves for Chris.
And I don't think Bobby can really interact at all with what Chris is about to do to him.
Alright, so...
And a Glimpse.
Glimpse of Nature off of the Dryad Arbor. Here's where it begins.
Yes.
It gets sort of complicated, I think.
Yeah, so what you're going to do is use the Glimpse and obviously play a ton of creatures, drawing cards. And every time you play a green spell, the Nettle Sentinel will untap. And you have so many creatures that cost 1 that the Nettle Sentinel untapping with the Birchlore Ranger will allow you to just cycle through your deck at an alarming rate.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Chris is actually a little heavy on lands in his hand, I think.
Yeah, he's seeming to draw quite a few of them. He still can play another one. He probably is going to play another Fetch Land and crack it right now before he continues going off. He does have a Priest of Titania in his hand, so he's certainly nowhere near stopping the loop.
Still got some fuel.
But yes, Priest of Titania is going to untap that Nettle Sentinel, and he's going to draw into a Court of Calling. Now,
so I believe he's got Llanowar Elves, Court of Calling, double Misty.
Yeah, he's going to play this Mysterium Forest. He's going to sacrifice it and get probably a basic Forest, maybe another dual. And then he's going to use Crop Rotation to sacrifice one of his lands. And Crop Rotation is going to grab Gaia's Cradle. Then he can tap the Nettle Sentinel for mana, and then he's going to tap the Nettle Sentinel for mana before he casts the Crop Rotation. Tap the Nettle Sentinel for mana. No. All right, he didn't tap the Nettle Sentinel for mana. So he missed out
Lost
on
a
a
little
little bit
mana,
there. But
There's so much to keep track of. It's kind of nuts, right?
So he does get the Cradle though. The Cradle now taps for 5 mana, along with his Nettle Sentinel, and because he forgot to do that, I don't think he's going to.
It's 6 mana, I think. Count the Dryad Arbor, right? 1, 2, 3,
Oh
4,
yes,
5, 6.
the Dryad Arbor also. So Cradle now tapping for 6 mana.
All right. He's just got a ton of mana. Court of Calling is his only spell right now.
And Court of Calling probably going to go ahead and grab a. I guess if he's in this spot, what does he grab? Does he grab a? I guess a Wirewood Symbiote.
All right, taps the Nettle Sentinel for mana and Priest of Titania.
All right, and he's going to get
Court
to
of
untap
Calling.
that Nettle
Yeah,
Sentinel.
we'll untap the Nettle Sentinel.
All right, now he's courting for how much? He tapped for 6 mana plus 7, so a court for 4. 5. Court for up to 5 here.
Wirewood Symbiote comes into play. One of the crazier cards in the Elf deck because it's an insect, but it happens to interact with the elves.
Yeah, and it interacts pretty well with these elves. Now he's going to use that Wirewood Symbiote to return this Elvish Visionary to his hand, or perhaps the.
So he actually courted for 1 and still has GGW floating, green, white floating.
Yeah, so he chooses to untap the Llanowar Elf, and then he's going to tap the. Okay, so he then taps Visionary. He's going to draw 2 cards off this Elvish Visionary here. And he hits a Glimpse and another Nettle Sentinel. So now he's going to get to draw 2 cards off of this Nettle Sentinel here. And he's playing well over 30 creatures, so he's very likely to hit another creature here. If he hits 2 creatures, the game is just well out of reach for Bobby. Another Nettle Sentinel is going to untap this Nettle Sentinel. Now he's drawing 2 cards because he has 2 Glimpses on the stack. He hits another creature. He's able. Another Nettle Sentinel. So now he's able to net crazy mana. Another 2 cards, and does he hit 2 lands in a row? No, it looks like he hit a guy.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a big guy.
I think that's Regal Force.
That's Regal Force, and yeah.
Well, first he starts
it
with
looks
another
like Chris
Priest
is just
of Titania.
going off here.
Another Priest of Titania, I think, just
untaps these Nettle Sentinels. He's
hiding
actually
under his
netting
life
mana
token.
from it. He's going to tap these 2 Nettle Sentinels again, tapping all 4 of these now, netting extra mana off these. Off the Birchlow Ranger, untapping all 3 Nettle Sentinels again, drawing 2 cards off the Glimpse of Nature. Another Wirewood Symbiote in hand now. Now there's no chance that he doesn't go off because he can not only cast the Wirewood Symbiote and draw 2 cards, but return the Elvish Visionary back to his hand with the Wirewood Symbiote, untapping another guy, replaying the Elvish Visionary and drawing 3 cards.
It can be nuts.
All right, yeah. Now adding another 1 mana using the Birchlow Ranger's activated ability. Still hasn't found a Heritage Druid yet, but able to add 2 mana here. Going to be able to untap these. And another important note, he can untap this Birchlow Ranger that he has in play that does not have Summoning Sickness with the Wirewood Symbiotes. Able to continue going off. He's going to net enough mana by going through this loop that he's able to get a Mirror Entity, and he has enough Nettle Sentinels in play that he's able to produce infinite mana with the Mirror Entity alongside the Wirewood Symbiotes. The Mirror Entity will create infinite mana, make all of his creatures have infinite power and toughness, and then he can attack his opponent with the Birchlow Ranger that does not have Summoning Sickness for upwards of 1,000 damage if he wants to.
And Bobby Kovacs just returned from his smoke break to catch this part of the turn. So
Yes.
Green
Green
Sun
Sun
for 1, yeah.
finds the Heritage Druid that he was missing, and now
good game
he's
floating.
Gonna,
is that what that means?
take Bobby Kovacs to Frowntown.
Jesse puts GG floating up on the prompter for us, just to help us in the loop. But I thought it looked more like good game floating, and I think that's accurate.
That is about accurate. All right, and then a 4th Nettle Sentinel comes down. Now this is just an absurd amount of mana coming down for Chris here, and Chris now has the white floating for the Mirror Entity. He's going to cast Mirror Entity. He's going to explain to his opponent, look, I can turn all my guys into elves, thus using the Wirewood Symbiote, and I can create infinite mana using these. And then, yeah, I mean, that is the combo. All right, yep, going through the loop here, and he's going to untap this Birchlow Ranger, create infinite mana, and then Yeah, I mean, Chris is just explaining to him that he's dead, that he's generated an infinite loop. I'm not sure if this is very clear right now. Chris has a massive amount of mana floating, and he can simply untap the Virtual Ranger, so it wasn't summoning sick. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty clear now that, yeah, I mean...
I guess it's not clear to people who aren't used to looking at elves, but apparently he's getting a warning for a missed trigger on the entity trigger, but...
Oh, he missed a glimpse trigger? Yep, I mean, gotta give him a warning for forgetting to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. So that's what that was about, yeah, so either way...
Yeah, and I mean, that type of thing happens when you're playing elves. It's, you know, there are a ton of different triggers happening, so it's...
Yeah, it's definitely easy to lose track, and I have mad respect for Chris to be able to play at that rate, because
I mean, that's what you need to do with elves if
you
want
have to play
your
it so
matches
often,
on time.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have anywhere near as many games under my belt with that deck, just even goofing around, and it's just, you know... You're going, wait, you got to think it through in your head too. Like, you're going, okay, so what can I do here? How fast can I decide to go all in? And when you do, then you got to go, what can I do to maximize things here? And
yeah, and I mean, there are a ton of triggers when you're playing elves, and there's a massive amount of stuff that you just have to work your way through.
Yeah.
I mean, I lost to timing out in the top 8 of a PTQ on Magic Online playing elves.
Wow, yeah.
So
and that's
one of the issues that can happen. It was shortly after they gave us 25-minute rounds, hence making elves unplayable on Magic Online.
Wow, yeah. Yeah. It's going to be rough. So, I'm going to assume here that Bobby knows that Chris is on elves. I'm also going to assume that Chris... You think Chris knows Bobby's on 43 lands at this point after seeing Rishadan Port, Wasteland, and Creeping Tar Pit?
I think he can assume so. I think Chris is the type of guy who's willing to deduce that information.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go with what you got, and I think you can probably figure that out. So, you know, taking a look, excuse me, at the sideboard here, I don't really know that Chris wants to bring in anything, right? Does Chris really have anything that would be worth bringing in? This is Chris's list here.
I would bring in a Fecundity.
Okay. And that's what Fecundity is the
like
enchantment.
Fairy Macabre is something else that you might want to think about, but
yeah.
Fecundity is an enchantment from I think it was
Urza
reprinted.
Saga.
It was Urza Saga originally, and then reprinted into maybe 8th edition.
Mm-hmm.
And Fecundity is whenever a creature goes to the graveyard from play,
you draw, right?
The controller draws a card. So it's dual-sided. You know, both players are benefiting from it. Mm-hmm. But you know, Bobby's deck does not play creatures, so
yeah, he's gonna have to activate a mana land and have it die, right?
Yeah, and Bobby's going to be trying to control Chris's creatures by searching for something like Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, and if Chris's creatures die to that, Chris is just going to get to draw new cards. And you know, if Chris is drawing cards and hitting his land drops, eventually he's just going to be able to go off. So I think the one Fecundity is definitely a solid choice here. Other cards he might consider, one Viridian Shaman. Yeah, I mean, one Viridian Shaman almost certainly coming in. The one Viridian Shaman is something that he's going to need in order to deal with cards like Ensnaring Bridge that you might expect, or like Oblivion Stone, or an Engineered Explosives that gets cast without the mana to crack it right away, or even a like. I guess those are really the only cards he's going to want to hit. He might also just like hit a Mox Diamond.
Right. What do you think about Bobby? Does Bobby bring in something like Trinisphere? That would.
Yeah, Trinisphere is about as good as it gets here.
Yeah, I mean, so he brings in Trinisphere, and that's another target for Viridian Shaman, theoretically here. Chalice of the Void actually seems pretty good for Bobby, and he's got 4 in the sideboard.
Yeah, I mean, another nightmare card for Chris.
Chalice on 1, I don't even know what Chris does. It's going to take him a while to be able to really play around that. I mean, he's got plenty of other casting costs, but 1 by far is probably the most common.
Well, after round 2, Chris came over and told me he had won, and there were still 28 minutes left on the clock, and I was like, that's a pretty fast win for Elves. And he's like, it's especially fast because my opponent played a Chalice for on both games. So,
oh, wait a second.
I think Chris is entirely capable of beating a Chalice for 1.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems to me, I've
beaten Chalice for 1 many times.
You know, like I don't necessarily scoop, but I try to fight through it a little bit. But you know, I feel pretty dejected at Chalice on 1 when you can't play Glimpse, you can't play.
Yeah, I mean, if they play it on like turn 1, it's a disaster. But even if they play it on like turn 2, if they play it on turn 2 on the draw, you're completely fine. And if they play it on turn 2 on the play, you kind of just have to sandbag a little bit and try to hit land drops. And then you can Green Sun for your Viridian Shaman or Cord for your Viridian Shaman. And then you just want to start using your Wirewood Symbiote to protect your Viridian Shaman so you can keep replaying it.
Okay, I see that. That makes sense.
Those of you who have ever played the Elves deck before understand that artifacts that supposedly beat the Elves deck, cards like Chalice the Void, cards like Trinisphere, those cards are not as good as people think they are because Viridian Shaman is just so easy to tutor for when you're playing this deck. So it's interesting about Chris's deck, and no Summoners packs here.
Yeah, Chris's version of Elves is
much different
quite a bit different than my list. I don't play Birchlow Ranger. I don't play Mirror Entity. I've got Vengevines, Intuitions, that kind of package. Excuse me. I don't play Green Sun Zenith. I don't play Priest of Titania. You know, I've got Regal Force and you know, quite a lot of the other guys.
I mean, this list looks very similar to the list that did well in Extended. He's obviously got a few cards like Queer Unranger, which is extremely powerful, and Crop Rotation for Cradle, also another extremely powerful effect. But I mean, he is very similar to the extended version of the deck. Yeah, but this Viridian Shaman is going to do some work right now. I also would not be terribly surprised to see maybe 1 or 2 Fairy Macabres come in for Chris. Although actually, no, I think those are definitely just more for like a Reanimator or.
Yeah, I was trying to think about how good is a Fairy Macabre gonna be? Would he rather just have, you know, more of his business spells than something that he's just using to throw away, kind of a Tormod Crypty kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think a Viridian Shaman of Fecundity are probably the extent of the cards that Chris is going to bring in here.
And that's probably good for him because, you know, the deck does have such synergy. You don't really want to mess it up. It's, you know, in a way, it's similar to Dredge.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that I'm going to sideboard in more than 4 cards when I'm playing Elves, so. All right, getting ready for game 2.
Bobby mulliganing? Bobby is mulliganing to 5.
And that bodes pretty well for Chris here. Chris, an awesome dude. I actually play computer games with him from time to time. I just play computer games with everybody, you know. You guys who are watching want to play computer games with me? Add me on Facebook. Let's play some computer games.
So for those of you just joining us, we're watching the final round of the StarCityGames.com Open Series here in Cincinnati. Final round of Legacy. These guys, 43 lands versus Elves here. Bobby Kovacs versus Chris Andersen. I'm Joey Pasco here with Jacob Van Lunen. And had a pretty exciting weekend.
As far as Magic goes, this is about as exciting as weekends get.
Yeah.
We had a Star City Open with over 600 players in Standard and well over 300 players in Legacy. And at the same time, we have a Pro Tour happening in Hawaii.
It's actually just under 300 players in Legacy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
under
296.
Oh, okay.
296. All right, so both players on a turn 1 Misty Rainforest.
All right, and a turn 1 Misty Rainforest for Bobby Kovacs. Let's see what it's going to grab. This is Bobby Kovacs' second turn, right? He mulliganed to 5.
That's
so
true.
I said. But I see 5 cards in his hand, so definitely already drew first turn.
Wasteland and Chalice for 1 on turn 2 on the play. So this is a situation that you described. So we're going to see if it holds to what you mentioned, right?
And I don't even think Chris really cares that much. Chris's hand isn't really soft to a Chalice for 1 at all. Chris is just going to search for a forest here. Now, in this game, Chris is going to want to max out on the basic lands that he's able to search for. With all of his fetch lands, he's basically going to be getting basics here because he wants to dodge Wasteland. He's trying to get up to 6 mana or just like 6 mana plus guys because Court of Calling has Convoke. And then he can just chord for a Viridian Shaman, he'll be fine. So here he can play another fetch land, search for a basic forest, and then cast a Priest of Titania. That's going to put him in a spot where he might even be able to just chord up that Viridian Shaman on turn 2, or on turn 3 rather. So, to see what he chooses to do here. And, yep, there it is,
exactly
the
that,
Priest
Priest of Titania.
And let's see what Bobby Kovacs has for this turn.
And
Bobby casting a Life from the Loam, returning that fetch land. Ooh, that's a kind of a weird thing for 43 lands to miss a land drop.
Yeah, well, he didn't miss it.
Yeah.
There it is. He just had to work for it. And Misty Rainforest cracked. Fetches Tropical Island. How confident do you think Bobby is under that Chalice for 1? Do you feel like he...
I think he probably thinks he's, like, golden. He thinks he's brought Chris to Frowntown, but Chris knows better. I mean, as somebody who's played Elves a lot, I understand that people often go so far as to do things like mulligan to 5 to find their Chalice.
Which is what Bobby may have very well done.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if that's actually what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, not to, not to kind of question Bobby's.
Oh no, I mean it's a completely reasonable thing. It's not like people play against Elves often.
Right, and me, if he were playing against me and I was playing Elves, as I told you, like if my opponent has Chalice for 1, I think I'm going to lose too. I'd probably be feeling pretty dejected, pretty under the. Just being under Chalice just seems like a bad thing, but Chris.
And see, another thing
that
Chris is doing wisely here. Normally, you'd want to play those fetch lands and thin them out of your deck before you drew cards to those Elvish Visionaries. But Chris is underneath that Chalice for 1, so right now he actually wants to hit these land drops. So he's gonna, cast those Elvish Visionaries before cracking those fetch lands, and just gain a tiny little advantage by doing that. But every tiny advantage counts when you're in these types of situations. Legacy is a format where, there are big cards that matter, but it's not so much like Standard where one card can kind of dominate the game. Every single card counts usually.
Life from
the Loam. And Bobby probably aggressively searching for a Tabernacle at this point.
He has, I think, a Windswept Heath in his hand.
And a second copy of Chalice for 1. And the second copy is a little bit harder, but I think Chris has a Symbiote in play. So, not the end of the world again.
You mean
or
if
has a symbiote that he
doesn't have one in play,
for,
right?
Yeah.
He's got a symbiote in his hand, but
it
he has
obviously
to
costs
right?
1, but he's going to have to Zenith for it. Yeah. Green Sun Zenith for 1. He's going to search the library for Wirewood Symbiote. Very nice. And because he has the Priest in play, this is going to allow him to do it, to kind of combo off like all at once. So he's going to be able to tap this Priest of Titania for 3 mana, if he so desires, and then use the Wirewood Symbiote to untap the Priest of Titania, return the Elvish Visionary back to his hand, then tap the Priest of Titania again, and he might even just be able to go off right now through the Chalice, but I think just waiting one more turn is probably the better play. But this turn already, he's going to do some damage with what he has in play. And the nice thing now is that because he has a Resolved Priest in play, Tabernacle is kind of minimized. Like, you can just tap the Priest and pay for the whole Tabernacle trigger.
Yeah. right, so
And there he goes. He produces
4
3 mana. Oh, yeah, 4 including a land. And he's going
Is
to
he
use
gonna-
that priest and find a Viridian Shaman.
Yeah, Zenith for Shaman. Shaman takes out the first chalice.
Yep, Shaman, going to take out that chalice. Now he can...
Untap the priest, return the Shaman, tap the priest, play the Shaman.
Yep. And then I think he has a Chord in hand too, so then he can just Chord for another Symbiote and start untapping the priest with the Glimpse in his hand, and then
Yep.
that's going to be game for Bobby.
Kill your chalice. Wow.
Yeah, oh, 2 Chalice of the Voids for 1 against my deck that's all 1 mana cards. Not quite good enough. And, I mean, for people who haven't played against elves, it would seem like this was just something that you couldn't even deal with, but Chris is going to kill him this turn.
Pendelhaven comes down, and he didn't even need to Chord for the other symbiote. He had it in his hand.
Oh, no, he did not go for the Regal Force.
Yeah, I thought you said he was going to Chord for a symbiote.
Oh, yeah, I thought he was going to Chord for a Regal Force there afterward, because he could Priest and then untap, so that would be... I don't know, it's only 4 plus 6 is 10, and he needs... Regal Force converted casting cost 7, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, so he could have Regal Forced, but I guess then he actually is left with no mana, though, so
yeah,
he can actually go off after that.
Discards a ton of cards.
So
Chris didn't quite kill him that turn, but gives Bobby a small window here. Replays his Misty Rainforest.
yeah, and I think... I mean, Bobby, even if he has a Turnosphere now, it's just not even close to good enough.
Yeah, Trinisphere doesn't stick around for long at all.
Yeah, what Bobby's going to want to do here is a Raven's Crime. That's probably his best chance. He's going to want to empty out Chris's hand.
3 copies.
And get to a point where he can just empty out his own hand and then Ensnaring Bridge him out. I guess that won't work.
Well, there's the Trinisphere we mentioned.
Yeah, Trinisphere comes down.
And a Mirror Entity for Chris.
And for those of you watching the Pro Tour, or watching us right now and wondering what's going on at the Pro Tour, Brian Kibler just defeated John Finkel in the semifinal match. Probably one of the most awesome matches ever. All right, yeah, and Chris Andersen kills his opponent with a Mirror Entity.
Yeah,
right through all the stuff.
Through double Chalice and Trinisphere, just not enough.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Yeah.